What if I told you American history isn't just presidents and heroes, but a front row seat to the dumbest people in history? From nuclear Boy Scouts to billionaires who recorded their own downfall, this history documentary reveals the biggest mistakes in U.S. history, the stupid decisions that changed history, and the absurd comedy hiding inside our past. Get ready for funny history facts. A human stupidity compilation so ironic it could be titled The Irony of History. Welcome to 40 epic historical blunders where confidence defeated common sense and the camera caught everything. 1. MacArthur Wheeler, the invisible lemon bandit. What if I told you a grown man tried to rob 2 banks wearing juice-like war paint? I'm not kidding. He smeared lemon on his face because invisible ink is a thing and decided the cameras would politely respect the chemistry. He even grinned at the lens the way cartoon villains grin at mirrors. That night, the local news played back his high-definition face, and the police collected him like an overdue library book. When they showed him the tape, he muttered that it could not be him because he had worn the juice. This is ignorance inflated with helium. It floats until reality shows up with a pin. The lesson you can feel in your bones is simple. You cannot outwit optics with pantry items. You cannot bend physics with a grocery list. You do not become invisible by dressing like a salad. If you think history only rewards geniuses, wait until you see how often it crowned fools. Don't just scroll past the truth. Subscribe and stay here, because the next story might change how you see every smart decision you've ever made. 2. Lord Timothy Dexter, the accidental tycoon. Ah yes, the classic. A barely literate New England dandy ships warming pans to the tropics and coal to a town famous for coal, and somehow cash rains from the sky. I guide you through the absurdity and you can almost hear a laugh track from the economy. Storms arrive in the Caribbean, and people use his useless pans as ladles and strainers, and every strange use case becomes a sale. A coal shortage turns his foolish shipment into a windfall. He writes a book that treats punctuation like a suggestion and still sells copies because wealth is a megaphone that drowns out grammar. He looks like a genius to the bystanders who only see the balance sheet. I see a kite dragged by lucky winds. When the roulette wheel pays out on nonsense, you are not a prophet. You are a postcard from randomness wearing a crown it found in a thrift store. 3. Gary Hart, the man who dared the press. You have heard this one 1,000 times. A front-runner with movie star hair hears rumors and tells reporters to follow him because he lives clean and they will be bored. I could have told him boredom is the last thing a newsroom wants. They take the dare, track his yacht weekend, and snap pictures of a romance that does not match the brochures. The name of the boat might as well have been Irony at Sea. By sunrise, his polling numbers drop faster than an anchor, and the election rewrites itself around the crater. He believed narrative control was a birthright. He forgot the camera is the editor now. Pride is a microphone that leaks. Privacy is a sandcastle during high tide. If you ever feel the urge to tempt the gods of media, look at this wreck and repeat after me. Never dare a storm to prove it is windy. 4. David Hahn, the backyard reactor. What if I told you a teenager treated a shed like a laboratory and tried to build a reactor from scavenged parts because science magazines looked lonely? I watched the story unfold like a slow-motion facepalm. He harvested americium from smoke detectors, bartered for other radioactive odds and ends, and assembled a neutron source with the confidence of a kid who thinks manuals are optional. The result was not a glowing city block, but radiation levels that made Geiger counters clear their throats. The feds arrived in moon suits, neighbors watched from behind curtains, and his dream of a homemade sun turned into a cautionary tale with police tape. Curiosity is a gift. Curiosity without brakes is a shopping cart rolling downhill toward fireworks. You can love the atom and still respect the part where it bites. Genius is not a free pass. It is a license that requires a helmet. 5. William Henry Harrison, the speech that killed the presidency. Ah yes, the classic. A new president decides to prove fortitude by giving the longest inaugural speech in icy wind with no coat because real men shiver with honor. I can feel the chill just saying it out loud. He lectures for hours, smiles at the weather like it owes him rent, and pays with the shortest term in American history. The myth says toughness looks like frost on your eyebrows. The truth says judgment brings blankets. Leadership is not a dare against pneumonia. It is the quiet wisdom to finish the speech and live to sign a bill. He wanted to be a statue before he had a record. He became a cautionary plaque instead. If you think stubborn is a synonym for strong, remember the cough that wrote this footnote and the month that turned an oath into an obituary. 6. Hank Johnson, the island that might tip. You have heard this one 1,000 times and you still blink. A congressman calmly asks if a Pacific island might tip and capsize from too many Marines, as if geology does slapstick. I can feel the room holding its breath while an admiral replies that the earth is not a seesaw and islands are not furniture you can knock over with crowds. The clip becomes instant folklore because it is ignorance dressed like policy. It shows how confidence can walk into a hearing wearing clown shoes and still expect applause. Maps exist for a reason. Rock does not float like a beach ball, no matter how many uniforms stand on it. The moral travels well. When power forgets basic science, the floor tilts, but only in the mind. The island remains steady. It is the question that capsizes. 7. Mike Tyson, the fortress of excess. What if I told you a fighter earned a fortune so large it could buy small countries and then spend it like a dare? I watched the list grow longer than a parade. Mansions empty as museum lobbies. Exotic cats that eat more than your car costs. Cars that cost more than your street is worth. Gold fixtures that turn bathrooms into altars of vanity. The revenue was a river. The expenses were a waterfall. The math does not care about your left hook. Without discipline, money becomes a magician that makes itself vanish while you clap. When the checks bounced, the roar faded into a hum, and the empire became a yard sale with framed belts. There is a lesson under the glitter. Power without planning is noise. If your lifestyle needs a zookeeper and a pit crew, your accountant is already dialing for help. 8. James Gordon Bennett Jr. The party that ended a dynasty. Ah yes, the classic. A newspaper heir arrives tipsy to high society, mistakes a piano for a restroom or a fireplace for a urinal, and turns an engagement party into a national headline. I can hear the crystal freezing in mid-clink. The bride-to-be vanishes in a cloud of scandal, rivals sharpen quills, and the dual culture of the day sniffs an opportunity for theater. Money buys chandeliers, but not self-control. One sloppy midnight became a wrecking ball that hit a family name built over decades. It is the champagne rule of power. The higher the bubble, the faster the spill. 9. The Segway prophecy and the cliff. You have heard this one 1,000 times. A device rolls into the spotlight with promises to redesign cities and end walking as a concept. Investors swoon. Commentators declare a new era that will reorganize streets and erase cars. Then, reality arrives with a shrug. The world keeps walking and the Segway becomes the official chariot of mall security and tourist herds in matching helmets. Years later, the owner of the company dies after riding off a cliff in a terrible accident that reads like satire, written by fate. Technology is a hammer that still needs steady hands and sensible roads. Hype cannot carry weight when gravity asks questions. Revolutions do not wobble on two wheels. They move because the ground agrees. If your future needs a gadget to sell the plot, make sure the plot does not end at a ledge. 10. Evel Knievel, the rocket that ballooned. What if I told you a man strapped himself to a rocket and promised a canyon leap on live television, and the chute opened at the launch like a nervous confetti cannon? I can still see the arc. He drifted down like a lost birthday balloon, while millions waited to scream either yes or no. The stunt delivered a third answer. It delivered the oldest truth in engineering. Checklists are more important than charisma. He did not clear the canyon, he cleared the ratings. Failure that honest becomes its own legend because we recognize the courage and we forgive the physics. The landing was a shrug. The story was a roar. If your plan relies on a single chord behaving perfectly, your plan is a coin tossed in front of the nation with your helmet as the bet. 11. Alex Jones, the conspiracy that bankrupted its profit. What if I told you a man turned a national tragedy into a mail-order carnival and thought the bill would never come? He called a school massacre a staged play, smeared grieving parents as actors, and sold miracle powder like it could erase sorrow. I watched him strut through studios as if volume were truth and cruelty were courage. Then courtrooms arrived with calculators and patience, verdicts stacked like cinder blocks. He tried to drown reality in noise and discovered that truth swims. He mistook attention for armor and found it was gasoline. Final line. When you monetize pain, justice itemizes you. Every one of these people thought they were right until reality hit harder than logic. If you've ever trusted your gut and paid the price, you'll understand them. Subscribe, because learning from their pain might just save you from your own. 12. Sam Keene, the barn roof Icarus. Ah yes, the classic. A farm kid sees the rights in a newspaper and decides aviation is simply optimism plus 2 boards. He straps on wooden wings, climbs the barn, and announces liftoff to an audience of cows. Gravity files its rebuttal immediately. Bones complain, feathers of pride fall everywhere, and the doctor's bill breaks the sound barrier. He swears he felt a gust like destiny tapping his shoulder. That is how every bad plan talks 30 seconds before impact. Progress is real. Physics is realer. If your flight plan is faith and nails, the runway is your spine. Closing thud. Wings need lift, not hope. 13. Cyrus Teed, the prophet of inside-out Earth. You've heard this one 1,000 times. A charismatic healer decides the universe is a snow globe and we live on the inside of the glass. He founds a commune in Florida, points gadgets at the horizon, and announces proof that begins where his sermon ends. The faithful nod while astronomers rub their temples. Night falls anyway. His cosmos is perfect because it ignores the sky and obeys the pamphlet. That is the sugar rush of bad cosmology. It feels like control because the math was pre-bent. I walked their beach and saw the same sun everyone else saw. Punchline. If your model only works when you squint, it belongs on a brochure, not a telescope. 14. Todd Ocken, the biology that wasn't. What if I told you a politician tried to replace reproductive biology with medieval fan fiction on live TV? He spoke about legitimate scenarios and bodies that magically shut things down, as if the uterus were a nightclub bouncer. Doctors winced, voters recoiled. The campaign discovered that science will not share a podium with superstition just because a suit asks nicely. He learned the hard way that anatomy beats anecdotes and that a microphone cannot outshout a textbook. The apology tour arrived late and empty. Short verdict. When facts say no, your career cannot filibuster. Final stamp. Biology is not a speechwriter. 15. Robert McNamara, The Spreadsheet War. Ah yes, the classic. A brilliant executive brings systems analysis to a jungle and assumes human hearts will follow the columns. He counts sorties, body ratios, kill boxes, and graphs a victory that never sets foot on a village road. The numbers behaved, people didn't. Morale refused to be measured. Strategy turned to fog while the ledger remained crisp. Years later, he whispered regret as if confession could edit the casualty list. Intelligence without humility is a boomerang you throw at history. It returns with your signature on the bruise. Last line. You cannot model grief, and you should never try. 16. Richard Lawrence, the assassin who misfired twice. You've heard this one 1,000 times. A delusional painter decides he is royalty and that a president must exit to make room for his fantasy. He raises 2 pistols at Andrew Jackson, and both cough like stage props. Jackson answers with a cane and the fury of a thunderstorm in human form until bystanders rescue the assassin from the target. Historians blamed humidity. I blamed hubris. Destiny hates plans that require 2 perfect clicks. The crowd learned a lesson about probability and temper. Closing smack. If your crown needs misfires to fit, it belongs in a costume trunk. 17. Donald Sterling, the billionaire who mic'd his own downfall. What if I told you a mogul torched his empire with a private rant that wasn't private and a worldview that belonged in a museum of errors? He scolded a companion for photos with black stars while owning a team in a league built by black excellence. The recording surfaced. The league moved faster than a fast break. A lifetime ban arrived with a for sale sign. Money buys banners, not wisdom. In the digital age, microphones are mirrors with memory. He thought power insulated him. It amplified him. Final whistle. Hypocrisy comes with instant replay. 18. Robert Driscoll, the skyjacker of romance. Ah yes, the classic. A heartbroken man confuses grand gesture with grand larceny and steals a jet to prove love has thrust. He lifts off into a future where radios bark and fuel gauges glare, hoping altitude can impress someone who already left. The horizon does not blink. He lands to applause from handcuffs and headlines that read like parody. Flowers were cheaper. Therapy was cheaper. Anything was cheaper than federal charges with runway lights. Aviation deserves better metaphors than this. Closing taxi. If your love letter needs clearance from the tower, it is not love. It is a confession with wings. 19. Lucky Baldwin, the hotel that forgot insurance. You've heard this one 1,000 times. A tycoon stacks velvet on marble, a jewel box of a hotel that sparkles like a promise, and then declares, "Premiums are for cowards." The night before opening, fire writes its orange review across the skyline. Chandeliers melt like expensive tears. Crowds gather to watch luxury become steam. Accountants invent new verbs. Fortune favors the bold but despises the uninsured. Risk is a language. If you do not speak it, the flames will translate. Epilogue in 12 words. Pride built it. Physics toured it. Fire closed it with a flourish. 20. Larry Walters, the lawn chair at 16,000 feet. What if I told you a man became an air traffic legend with a patio chair and a hardware receipt? He tied 40-plus weather balloons to his seat, packed sandwiches and a pellet gun, and drifted into jet lanes like a cartoon that forgot to end. Pilots radioed a flying recliner. Controllers asked the sky to explain itself. He finally descended, snagged power lines, and learned that headlines arrive faster than licenses. I admire the audacity and indict the planning. Dreamers make history. Checklists keep them alive. Signature line: aim high, plan higher, and do not land on the grid. 21. James Riley, the Congressman of exploding toilets. What if I told you a lawmaker tried to save sailors from an enemy that lives under the lid? He heard a rumor about Navy toilets detonating without warning and sprinted to the nearest microphone like Paul Revere on porcelain. Hearings were scheduled, memos multiplied. Staffers drafted solemn questions about flush valves as if the republic hinged on seat hinges. Sailors on deck blinked at each other and wondered which ocean he was legislating. This is how a chuckle becomes a briefing and a footnote becomes a budget line. 22. George B. McClellan, the general who was always almost ready. Ah yes, the classic. A commander polishes an army until it gleams, then refuses to let it touch mud. He counts enemy phantoms, drafts immaculate plans, and misses every train to battle because the platform looks drafty. Lincoln begged, history begged, the war begged. Still, he waited for a perfect alignment that only exists in chess problems in boardrooms. Preparation is a cathedral. Paralysis is the scaffolding left up forever. He loved his soldiers so much he would not risk them, which reads like affection and functions like surrender. Victories do not assemble themselves on velvet. They are dragged through noise by leaders who act. Final order. Strategy without action is costume. If you will not swing the sword, hand it to someone who will. 23. Uri Geller, the spoon that bent his career. You have heard this one 1,000 times. A psychic dazzles audiences by folding flatware with vibes until a skeptical host demands spoons he cannot swap and timing he cannot script. On live television, the miracle takes lunch. Silence replaces wonder. Sweat replaces swagger. Millions watch certainty wilt like a salad on a radiator. The era wanted magic. It got inventory management. I have no quarrel with stagecraft. I do with stagecraft dressing as the cosmos. Belief is free. Demonstrations send invoices. The home lesson is blunt. If your powers require your props and your timing, you are not bending reality. You are bending logistics. Last clink. When mystery meets controls, cutlery remembers it is stainless steel. 24. Jonathan Lee Riches, the man who sued the planet. What if I told you a prisoner discovered the courthouse as a stage and decided the world should pay admission? He sued presidents, athletes, monks, cartoon characters, a sandwich empire, and eventually Earth itself, because absurdity gets thirsty once it tastes attention. Clerks stacked filings until the counter looked geological. Judges wrote opinions that read like very polite sighs. The legal system can carry the weight of injustice. It staggers under performance art. I watch the theater of paperwork try to turn boredom into a legacy and only prove that stationery enables delusion. Final stamp. If you sue everything, you confirm nothing except that idle time owns a pen and a postage budget. 25. Jerry Falwell Jr. The moralist with a window. Ah yes, the classic. A campus sells virtue at retail while its leader accumulates headlines at wholesale. Photos surface, stories bloom. The gap between sermon and spectacle widens until students could drive a bus through it with the choir singing in the back. The brand promised righteousness with a tie clip. The practice delivered tabloid with a grin. I watched a generation taught to behave discover that hypocrisy wears loafers, holds a mic, and smiles for donors. Institutions fall hardest when their rules are boomerangs. Police hemlines if you must. The camera will measure your spine. Closing hymn. If your doctrine is glass, do not install a spotlight and certainly do not wave from the window. 26. Elon Musk, the submarine that wouldn't fit. What if I told you a billionaire tried to save children with a submarine that didn't fit the cave? In 2018, while Thai rescuers risked their lives inch by inch through flooded tunnels, he arrived with cameras, engineers, and a prototype that looked more like a PR missile than a rescue tool. The divers thanked him politely and went back to doing physics the hard way. When one expert called it impractical, Musk called him names, proving ego has worse buoyancy than metal. The kids made it out thanks to teamwork, not tweets. He built a vessel for glory, not geography. Innovation without humility is vanity in aluminum form. The rescue succeeded. The submarine gathered dust, and the world learned that sometimes the smartest man in the room just needs a smaller entrance. 27. Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, the gospel of enemas. What if I told you a doctor turned diet into doctrine and the human body into a suspicious roommate? At his famed sanatorium, sin was starch and salvation was blandness, served with lectures crisp as linen. Patients marched through fasts, contraptions, moral scolding, and yogurt in places yogurt never auditioned for. Wellness is wonderful until it forgets comfort is part of health. Asceticism in a lab coat is still theater with better lighting. The modern industry stole his script, added pastel packaging, and posted discount codes. I walked those pamphlets and heard the same chorus. Purity promises miracles until reality asks about consent and evidence. Closing bite. If health feels like punishment, you are not healing, you are rehearsing. 28. Robert Moses, the architecture of exclusion. Ah yes, the classic. A planner draws lines so low that buses cannot pass, turning concrete into a velvet rope. Bridges to beaches sit just short enough to keep poor and black riders away, while brochures praise modern efficiency, and the skyline applauds because skylines do not take transit. Urbanism is politics with rebar. It can stitch or scar. He chose scar and buried prejudice in gradients and clearances that look neutral at a glance. I drove those parkways and felt the maps smirk. This is how power hides inside engineering and pretends to be math. Final curb. When a road decides who belongs, it is not infrastructure. It is a border pretending to be helpful. 29. John DeLorean, the genius who shook hands with powder. You have heard this one 1,000 times. A brilliant engineer births a stainless steel icon that looks like a time machine and tries to save his factory with a suitcase solution that hisses when opened. Cameras watched, agents nodded. The comeback arc snapped like a brittle ruler. He confused charisma with collateral and the 80s with a permission slip. Innovation demands patience and boring discipline, not shortcuts that stain your fingerprints. The car deserved a factory humming, not a courtroom close-up. The dream needed customers, not sting footage. Final frame. If your rescue plan needs a trap to function, it is not a plan. It is your downfall with lighting. 30. Big Bill McCluskey, the mayor who bombed his own party. What if I told you a town finally tasted rain after months of dust and celebrated with artillery aimed at itself? The mayor promised a cannon salute at the first drop, lit the fuse, and forgot to check the barrel. The shell punched civic pride through City Hall like a very loud audit. People cheered, then ducked, then laughed, then drafted invoices. Leadership is enthusiasm plus trajectory. He brought fireworks and outsourced math to fate. I love the spirit, I wince at the aim. Final bang. If your victory requires explosives, confirm the muzzle points anywhere but your desk. 31. Dennis Tito, the tourist of the cosmos. Ah yes, the classic. A millionaire decides Earth is too ordinary and buys a $20 million ticket to space, mistaking orbit for enlightenment. He calls himself a pioneer. The astronauts call him payload with Wi-Fi. Cameras float, pens drift, and Tito poses like a man auditioning for the role of first influencer in space. The trip adds no science, only selfies. The cosmonauts babysit him politely while real experiments wait their turn. He returns home lighter in gravity and heavier in ego, announcing that humanity has crossed a new threshold, luxury travel where oxygen is extra. Curiosity built rockets, vanity rented them. History smiled politely and moved on. The moral is simple. Exploration isn't about altitude, it's about attitude. You can orbit the Earth and still miss the point entirely. 32. Rosie Ruiz, the Subway champion. Ah yes, the classic. A marathon victor who looks suspiciously fresh, no salt crust on the skin, no runner's haze in the eyes. Reporters ask splits and strategy. She answers like someone who once jogged near a park. Witnesses remember a woman stepping out near the finish with the confidence of a person joining a photo. The timeline wobbles. The applause chills. The medal becomes a boomerang. Officials retrace the city and the truth appears between two stations. Cheating is a costume party where the mirror does not play along. She wanted the aura without the miles, the trophy without the tendons. It was the 80s in miniature. Image first, substance later. But endurance sports are stubborn. They keep receipts in calf muscles and lungs. Closing line. You can borrow a finish line for a day. You cannot borrow the road that earns it. 33. Mad Mike Hughes, the flat earth martyr. What if I told you a man welded his way toward the horizon because he did not trust pictures from space? You have heard this one 1,000 times, yet it still stings. He built steam rockets in the desert to see the curve with his own eyes and prove the world was a plate. Each launch was a bet against physics, and the odds never blinked. Engineers shook their heads, fans cheered the spectacle. The camera rolled on the last attempt and silence claimed the punchline. Here is the tragedy under the surface. Skepticism is healthy. The denial of expertise is a cliff in disguise. DIY bravery deserves respect. DIY aeronautics demands equations. He chased an answer that was already photographed 1,000,000 times and paid the cost that equations could have saved. Epitaph. Gravity is not your enemy. Ignoring it is. 34. Michael Larson, the man who beat the game, then lost the money. You've heard this one 1,000 times. The quiet man with a VCR memorizes the random patterns of a 1980s game show called Press Your Luck, turns probability into a symphony, and wins $500,000 in one afternoon. The audience cheers, the producers panic, and TV history gets a folk hero. Then comes Act 2. Larson hides the cash in shady schemes, frozen accounts, and pyramid dreams that crumble faster than applause. Investigators find his brilliance scattered like receipts. He decoded randomness, but not himself. The lesson still glows in cathode light. Mastering a system means nothing if you remain a mystery to your own discipline. Luck can be studied, greed cannot. The board blinked, big bucks, but the true prize was restraint, and he left it unclaimed. 35. Thomas Harvey, the man who kept Einstein's brain. What if I told you the most famous mind of the century was followed by an unauthorized field trip? The pathologist performed the autopsy and quietly took the prize for safekeeping that nobody authorized. Jars, slices, decades in a private life that looked more like a collector's basement than a lab. Pilgrims came to glimpse genius floating in fixative because we confuse relics with answers. Neuroscience needs hypotheses, not souvenirs. He mailed pieces to researchers who published footnotes while the myth ballooned. We wanted a map to brilliance and got a museum of fragments. The creepiness is not the jar. It is the hubris that thought possession equals insight. The brain was never a trophy. It was a person's last privacy, last word. Curiosity without consent is not science. It is an exhibit you should close. 36. Lord Timothy Dexter, the Emperor of Accident Returns. You have heard this one 1,000 times. The man who sold warming pans to the tropics and coal to coal country strolls back for an encore. He threw punctuation at the end of his book like confetti and told readers to sprinkle marks wherever they pleased. The economy, in one of its cosmic jokes, kept giving him tailwinds. He bought a mansion and staged his own funeral to feel the reviews while alive, and then scolded mourners for not crying harder. Capitalism is many things. It is also a slot machine that sometimes spits coins at people pressing buttons with their elbows. Dexter was not a strategist. He was a weather vane that got famous for pointing where the storm already wanted to go. Encore moral. When luck dresses as genius, tip the seamstress, not the actor. 37. James Addison Revis, the Baron of Arizona. Ah yes, the classic. A forger who tried to invoice half a territory. He studied calligraphy like a monk and sprinkled dust on fresh ink to age it. He planted documents in archives the way magicians palm coins. He married a woman and declared her the heiress to an empire he wrote on his kitchen table. For a while it worked. Banks shook hands. Politicians cleared throats. He walked through the American West like a ghost from Madrid with a lawyer. But greed is a sloppy editor. A date misaligned. A seal looked sunnier than it should. An investigator refused to be dazzled by filigree. The edifice cracked, and the Baron became a tourist of prison walls. Lesson in bright paint. If your fortune needs a time machine, the calendar will arrest you. 38. Samuel Pierpont Langley, the flight that failed to notice the rights. What if I told you the US government once funded the wrong aviator? Samuel Langley had prestige, money, assistants, and press columns calling him the father of flight months before the first takeoff. He built a contraption that resembled a flying ironing board and launched it into the Potomac with senators watching. It immediately collapsed, baptizing ambition in cold water. The nation laughed. Days later, two brothers with grease on their hands and a bicycle for a lab took off in Kitty Hawk, quietly rewriting history while Langley drafted excuses. He had resources, they had curiosity. He sought applause, they sought lift. His legacy is not failure. It's a footnote reminding us that intellect without iteration drowns in its own funding. The right soared. Langley sank. Bureaucracy had wings. It just forgot to fly. 39. Big Bill McElroy, the beer rocket. Ah, yes, the classic. An inventor decides carbonated courage can move a missile. He builds a pressure chamber in a garage that smells like bar night and optimism, then opens the throttle on a theory that should have stayed doodled in a notebook. The neighborhood learns what overpressure means. The roof auditions for NASA. The project ends in splinters in a story that tastes like hops and regret. America loves tinkerers. It does not love shrapnel. Science is a ladder of small steps that check each other. Backyard ballistics skips rungs and calls it innovation. The result is a cautionary tale with a trophy made of fire insurance. 40. Robert McNamara, the executive who couldn't model war twice. What if I told you the architect of quantified strategy returns for the coda he earned? In the 60s, he treated villages and jungles like spreadsheets that obeyed inputs. Decades later, he spoke softly of error, as if apology could square a ledger written in names. Numbers are beautiful instruments. They hate being used as blindfolds. He believed management could master chaos through measurement. Chaos took the measurements and swelled anyway. He was not a cartoon villain. He was the scariest figure of all. A brilliant man sure he was right. That is why he belongs here at the exit door. Not to jeer the fall, but to underline the thesis. The biggest fools are not always the loudest. They are often the smartest men in the wrong room. Final line. When certainty outruns wisdom, history collects its debt with interest. Here is the truth I carried through every story tonight. History is not a marble hall of geniuses. It is a crowded hallway of overconfident amateurs bumping into the furniture. The idiot is not always the clown with lemon on his face. Sometimes the idiot wears a suit, quotes a spreadsheet, and speaks like a lighthouse. Sometimes the idiot is luck itself, blessing a man who ships warming pans to the tropics and coal to a coal town, then convincing onlookers that destiny rewards brilliance rather than coincidence. That confusion builds statues. Then rain arrives, and the cannon is still pointing at City Hall. I kept returning to the same pattern. Pride outruns wisdom. Certainty bullies doubt. A hunch grabs the steering wheel and refuses to read the road signs. The result varies. A backyard reactor, a lawn chair at jet altitude, a cliff at the end of a two-wheeled revolution. The moral does not vary. Physics is patient. Institutions eventually pull the fire alarm. The bill always comes due. You can argue with experts. You cannot argue with gravity, combustion, or cameras that never forget. Another thread should sting a little. Many of these disasters were not born in ignorance. They were born in talent without guardrails. McNamara had a first-class mind and a second-class humility. Sterling had wealth without wisdom. Moses had vision with blind spots you could drive a bus under if he had allowed one to pass. Dexter had luck that masqueraded as strategy until people confused tailwinds with wings. That is the quiet warning running under the jokes. The most dangerous fool in the room is often the smartest person who has stopped listening. There is mercy here too. Courage and curiosity are not the villains. Neville misfired and still showed us the honor of trying. Walter scared pilots and still reminded us that dreams can lift. Curiosity deserves a lab. Daring deserves a checklist. Skepticism deserves math. The world improves when we keep the spark and add a fuse that does not touch our face. Bad ideas are not inevitable. They are preventable with one unglamorous habit. Ask one more hard question before lighting the fuse. If this blend of deadpan and data made you grin and think at the same time, tap like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you do not miss the next time history trips over its own shoelaces in high definition.